Alright, I'm doing a glazing demo. Hopefully I can make this as quick as possible. The glazes we've got, easiest way to mix them up is to use the drill. Make sure it's in forward or it splashes all over the place, and make sure it's clean or it contaminates the glaze. This one has not been cleaned. So, bring it over here, rinse it off, tap it to reduce drips, put it in the bucket. It's a variable speed drill. If you don't pull the trigger hard, it doesn't go very fast. The harder you pull the trigger, the faster it goes. If the bucket is fairly full, you should use one of these. Put the drill through there. And stir it up until it's about full. If it's a full bucket, don't spin it off in there. It tends to go everywhere. But if you can do it where all the little drips are going to go over everywhere else, when you put it, they're only going to go hit the side of the bucket. You can spin it off. Otherwise, just tap it and come over here. When you put it away, there's a little slot for the trigger. If you release that, it'll turn on. So don't do that. If you've trimmed yours with the glaze catch and bevel and the foot the way that I recommend to do it, then the easiest way to glaze this is to hold it by the foot. And use 2 fingers makes it less fingerprints, but 3 fingers is a lot more stable. If you do your whole hand, that's annoying. Try and keep your hand as far up as possible. That's fairly stable. And this is for 1 solid coat glaze. I just dip it in there and tip my hand sideways so that the air bubbles get out, and then I flip it right side up as soon as possible. You can see that as I'm holding this, it's starting to dry. Any of these places where it was thicker, you can see the drips and all of that stuff that's coming across. That will show up in your final product as a slightly thick area or an inconsistency in the glaze. Some of those are nice because they add variety. Other ones you want a nice clean look, and so you want to eliminate them as much as possible. Then you wouldn't flip it upside down. You'd have it all drip from one side, or when it dries sufficiently, you will rub it lightly with your finger. Once you can touch it, you set it down. We're not worried about getting that bottom messed up because you're going to wipe it off anyway. That will look like this. If you've got your bevel that's clear, you wipe off the bottom and the bevel. Just like that, and that's wiped off. The inside foot needs to be wiped off if it's less than 1/8 of an inch deep. If it's more than that and you would like to keep that glazed, you may. Right here, and my other fingerprint marks where I missed some glaze, I'm going to get a little bit of glaze on my finger and just touch it to there. It usually, that overcorrects, makes it a little bit thick, so then you just wait for it to dry and then rub it lightly with either your finger or a needle tool or an X-Acto knife to get that thickness evened out so that it's not noticeable. Okay. Another thing that you can do to make your wiping off quicker is to get your wet sponge, wipe the bottom right before you dip it, and just noticing I've got, when I wrote my name, there was little goober things that I didn't clean up. If there's dust on there, that can eliminate the adhesion of the glaze and make it fall off. And so if there's a dust problem, you lightly rinse the entire thing. But that means that it's going to absorb glaze just a little bit less, and I can't dip it right away. I have to wait for it to dry, but you can see it drying visibly as you go. So again, I'm going to wipe that bottom and dip this. This time I'm going to use tongs, which is an alternative method. These tongs, the tips don't line up. If you press too hard, you can break right through the side of your pot. So you want to have the vertical part on the inside of a curve and the horizontal on the outside of a curve, so that it's matching the shape of the pot. If you do that reverse, that's putting extra pressure on those points, more likely to break through. This one is going to leave little marks, but they're going to be quite tiny and a little bit easier to clean up. I dip that in with the tongs, dump it out, and I can spin it around like this in order to get those drips to go evenly around the rim, and then set it right down, right side up, release with the tongs. I'll come back later and clean up my tong marks on there. I personally don't use the tongs very often, but you are definitely welcome to. You don't have to do just one solid dip across the entire thing. You are completely welcome to take it and dip one side, then wait for that to dry, dip the other side in a different glaze, and wait for that to dry, and then dip it again, so that you have 3 places of one glaze, then those 2 mixed, then another glaze, and then these 2 mixed, another glaze, so you get kind of almost a color wheel sort of a thing. When glazes mix, they're not going to go, if you mix red and blue, you get purple. They don't work like that. They are chemical reactions, not pigments. So when you mix them, you're getting a whole variety of things. And one of the things you need to be ready for is when you mix glazes, they are much more likely to run and drip all over the place.